Hey, welcome back! Today, we are counting down the 5 most valuable Australian pennies that may look ordinary at first glance, but each one hides a story of history, rarity, and astonishing value. These pennies have survived wars, changes in design, and decades of circulation. Yet only a few flawless examples remain, making them the ultimate treasures for collectors. Stay with me, because by the end of this countdown, you'll discover how something as small and simple as a penny can become a priceless piece of Australia's numismatic history. First up, the 1964 Australian penny may look like an ordinary circulation coin, something millions of Australians once jingled in pockets or tossed into jars. But behind its humble bronze appearance lies a story of rarity, transition, and unexpected collector demand. Minted at a time when Australia was preparing to say goodbye to the pre-decimal system, the 1964 penny represents the final chapter of a long-running national currency tradition that began in 1911. The obverse features the young portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, designed by Mary Gillick, a classical and softer depiction compared to later effigies, giving this coin a subtle elegance. The reverse showcases the iconic leaping kangaroo, along with the word Australia proudly curved above, and the date, 1964, positioned neatly below. A timeless and instantly recognizable design used throughout the mid-20th century. Most examples of this coin were struck for heavy circulation, and more than 60 million were produced, meaning regular worn versions are still found in old collections, scrap estates, and inherited tins. But the true value of the 1964 penny lies not in the common examples. It lies in rare mint state survivors, especially those struck at the Perth Mint under flawless conditions. Many coins from this era suffered weak strikes, scratches from handling bags, and environmental toning. That's why pristine gems graded by PCGS or NGC with blazing original luster, flawless surfaces, crisp edges, and razor-sharp details are extraordinarily scarce. These top-tier examples stand out as masterpieces, representing the end of Australia's pre-decimal history, when collectors compete for the finest known example, especially those with the highly coveted proof-like qualities or special strike characteristics. The price can climb into astonishing territory. Record-breaking auctions have shown that perfection isn't just desirable, it is fiercely chased, and when two determined collectors want the same flawless specimen, the result is astronomical. Today, the 1964 Australian penny in the highest known grade can command a jaw-dropping $243,000, making it one of the most valuable late-era Australian pennies ever known and a true treasure for serious numismatists who understand rarity beyond mintage numbers. So next time you see a 1964 penny sitting in a drawer or old coin box, remember, history sometimes hides in plain sight, and perfection can turn the most ordinary-looking coin into a record-smashing masterpiece. Next up, the 1952 Australian penny tells a very different yet equally fascinating story, one tied to post-war recovery, limited production, and exceptional rarity in high grades. Struck during the reign of King George VI, this coin features his left-facing portrait designed by Thomas Humphrey Paget, a sharp and dignified effigy symbolizing stability during changing times. The reverse once again displays the iconic kangaroo, a design that was already deeply embedded into Australian identity. But what makes the 1952 penny stand out from the rest is not its design, it's the scarcity factor. Compared to other mintage years, relatively fewer 1952 pennies were produced, and most were aggressively circulated. Australia, in the early 1950s, still relied heavily on bronze pennies for daily trade, meaning the majority became scratched, worn down, knocked, dented, and dulled through decades of heavy handling. Finding a 1952 penny in good, circulated condition is not rare, but finding one in fully original, untouched, high-grade mint state condition is incredibly difficult. Many collectors spent years chasing high-quality examples only to find the surfaces dull, dented, or uneven. Mint sets were not widely issued, and preservation quality was inconsistent. That's why a sharply struck, original luster example with minimal marks and toned perfection is considered a trophy coin. Coins with proof-like brilliance and crisp details, especially those certified at the highest MS levels, move beyond numismatic interest and enter the territory of competition and prestige. Top collectors seek not just rarity, but the single finest known example, and when that opportunity arises at auction, the bidding becomes intense. Today, a top-graded 1952 Australian penny can reach a staggering $223,000, proving that true rarity is not measured by how many coins were minted, but how many survived in flawless condition. This coin stands as a reminder of post-war Australia, a symbol of economic rebuilding, and a cherished historical relic that continues to rise in value as collectors around the world compete to secure the finest examples before they disappear permanently into private collections. Next up, the 1949 Australian penny carries a fascinating story rooted in post-war change, evolving minting practices, and the beginning of modern Australian numismatics. At first glance, it appears to be another ordinary kangaroo penny, the kind that circulated in the pockets of everyday Australians during the late 1940s, a time when the country was rebuilding after World War II. But beneath its simple bronze surface lies unexpected rarity, especially in surviving high-grade condition. The obverse features the portrait of King George VI by Thomas Humphrey Paget, a strong, structured design, reflecting both royal authority and the resilience of the British Commonwealth after the global conflict. The reverse displays the familiar leaping kangaroo with the inscription Australia and the date 1949, a design created to represent national identity and pride as Australia moved further away from its colonial past and closer to its own independent monetary culture. Millions of 1949 pennies were produced for circulation, with the Perth Mint striking a majority of them marked with the subtle but significant Y Mint mark next to the date. The presence or absence of this tiny mark is one reason collectors find this year compelling. Some examples are scarcer, some are better struck, and some varieties display differences in detail, spacing, and die alignment. Most survivors from this year are well worn, with rubbed surfaces, dents, scratches, environmental toning, and circulation marks. During this era, pennies traveled through bakeries, corner shops, train stations, and post offices. No one imagined that. Someday these humble bronze coins could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Mint sets were not preserved with the same care we see today, and handling procedures were far less protective, meaning sharp. Untouched examples were incredibly rare from the start. Only a very small number of 1949 pennies exist today in pristine, gem quality with fully original mint brilliance. These few examples show razor-sharp strike definition, the fur on the kangaroo's legs, the crisp detailing on the king's portrait, the exact milling lines on the rim, and even subtle copper flow patterns from the striking process. These top-tier survivors carry an almost proof-like appearance, making them stand out dramatically among average circulated pieces. When one of these extraordinary high-grade specimens appears in auction, it does not simply attract collectors, it triggers competition on a global scale, driving values into record territory. Today, the finest known example of the 1949 Australian penny has been recorded selling for an astonishing $267,000, proving that rarity isn't always about how many were minted. It's about how many survived, untouched, flawless, and frozen in time. This coin reminds collectors that true numismatic treasure often hides within the ordinary, waiting for those with a trained eye and deep appreciation for history. Next up, the 1944 Australian penny holds an even more dramatic and historically charged identity. Minted in the final years of World War II, this coin represents a moment when global conflict reshaped economies, minting practices, and national priorities. While many assume all Australian pennies during this period were struck domestically, the truth is more intriguing. A large portion of 1944 pennies were actually produced overseas, particularly at the Bombay Mint in India, due to wartime pressure on Australia's own minting facilities. These overseas struck coins are distinguishable by the tiny I mint mark beneath the kangaroo, a small detail that today carries massive significance to serious collectors. The portrait of King George VI on the obverse remains strong and detailed, symbolizing leadership in one of the darkest yet most defining chapters of modern history. The reverse retains the timeless kangaroo design, a proud emblem of national resilience and Australian identity. But what truly sets the 1944 penny apart is the survival quality difference between standard, circulated coins and the incredibly rare top-grade specimens. Wartime handling and metal shortages meant most examples were circulated quickly and heavily. Few were stored carefully, and almost none were preserved under controlled conditions. As a result, the majority seen today are tarnished, worn, scratched, or toned from exposure. Finding a truly original, sharply struck, mint-state example with full luster is almost impossible, and when one emerges, it becomes a crown jewel of Australian copper coinage. Collectors especially seek coins with rich chocolate or fiery red surfaces, flawless rims, and crisp detailing, traits nearly absent in wartime bronze coinage. The rarity becomes even more intense when combined with impeccable provenance or certification from world-recognized grading bodies like PCGS or NGC. When two elite collectors chase the same flawless specimen, the auction room transforms and silence breaks with bold, escalating bids. That competitive passion is why in the highest certified grade, the 1944 Australian penny has soared to a staggering $315,000, securing its position as one of the most valuable and historically important pennies in Australian numismatic history. What was once merely pocket change during a global war is now a symbol of scarcity, survival, and historic value, a reminder that some coins are far more than metal and design. They are time capsules of a nation's past. Next up, the 1939 Australian penny is one of the most iconic, mysterious, and highly coveted coins in the entire history of Australian numismatics. To anyone unfamiliar with rare coins, it may look like just another old bronze penny, simple, aged, and ordinary. But to collectors, historians, and serious investors, this coin represents a turning point in design history, a brief production window, and one of the greatest rarities Australia has ever minted. This isn't just a coin, it's a historical accident, a rarity created by timing, design experimentation, and circumstances no one expected. And that is why today, the finest known example of the 1939 Australian penny can command an astonishing $450,000, making it one of the most valuable copper coins ever produced in the country. To understand why this coin is extraordinary, we must go back to the year 1939, a year when the world was tense, uncertain, and on the brink of global conflict. Australia was still deeply connected to the British Empire, and the portrait of King George VI, created by Thomas Humphrey Paget, appeared on the obverse of its currency. But the reverse of the 1939 penny is the real key to its rarity and legendary status. For decades, Australian pennies featured the Commonwealth design with the words Commonwealth of Australia arranged around a circular border. But in 1938, a decision was made to modernize and create a uniquely Australian identity in coinage, replacing the old text-heavy design with a bold symbol of national pride. The iconic leaping kangaroo. However, here is where history becomes fascinating. The very first release of this new kangaroo design included the word KG, initials of the designer George Kruger Gray, placed discreetly near the kangaroo's foot. This seemingly small artistic signature would become the defining feature, separating this ultra-rare coin from all later pennies of the same year. Only a limited number of pennies were struck with the KG initials before the decision was made to remove them. Why were they removed? Historians believe it may have been due to aesthetic complaints, production inconsistency, public feedback, or minting policy. No official record confirms the exact reason, which adds another layer of mystery. A mystery collectors love. Once the initials were removed, the new design continued into mass production, meaning that the vast majority of 1939 pennies do not have the initials. But the early production run, the one with the initials, remained extremely small. Most were released into normal circulation, used for daily shopping, held by soldiers during wartime rationing, exchanged in corner stores, train ticket offices, post offices, and family piggy banks. Almost none were preserved intentionally. That means nearly all of these rare early coins suffered scratches, dents, wear, exposure to moisture, and tarnish. Many have rim marks, flat strike details, or hidden corrosion that lowers their grade dramatically. This is why the survival of even a moderately clean example is rare, but the existence of high-grade mint state examples is almost unbelievable. A perfectly preserved 1939 kangaroo penny with the KG initials displays breathtaking detail. Crisp edging, full copper luster, sharp portrait lines, and flawless kangaroo definition. You can see fur texture, bead borders, and metal flow lines, all the details normally lost after decades of handling. These top examples have a deep visual richness, whether fiery red, chocolate brown, or red-brown toned, offering a beauty few copper coins can match. When such a specimen appears at auction, the reaction is electric. Collectors don't simply bid, they battle. This coin represents the birth of modern Australian design, the first introduction of the kangaroo motif, and an extremely short production history. It checks every category of numismatic rarity: low survival population, design change, historical timing, and undeniable collector demand. That combination makes it irresistibly valuable and continuously rising in worth as collectors compete to acquire. The finest known example. Today, in its highest recorded grade, the 1930 Nijo Australian penny with the rare KG initials has sold for an astonishing $450,000, and many experts believe this value may still increase in future auctions as fewer examples remain available and more collectors realize just how historically significant this penny truly is. What was once a simple bronze coin made for everyday use has evolved into a national treasure. Aidisets, symbol of identity, change, rarity, and the unpredictable future value of history preserved in metal.